The research strategies that I'm just sharing there are research strategies that are institutional research strategies that are already, most of them are already in place, but I just thought of highlighting one or two areas that would help us as an institution to ensure then that one, the research excellence itself and the institutional individual research excellence gets strengthened in a bigger way. It's important to inculcate a culture. Since the university is a research-intensive university, it's important to build up on that area. And so the knowledge generation and other approaches that we know, in including the research excellence framework that can be pursued, are issues and focus areas that can be strengthened further than what it is now. To guide us into the future as we deal with transformation, as we deal with other issues that are scientific level, there may be need to look at also a scientific view where we look at the way we deliver, the way we teach and learn in a number of areas. And these are just some of the examples that have been used elsewhere that could help, especially when it comes to the mode of delivery and how it can be strengthened in many ways. And I'm just speaking one of them at this stage, and one of which is the this particular approach of making sure then that we create a community of learning by taking a certain approach, which is quite a constructivist approach, is one where we want to learn from the experiences of the students and others, so that the learning experiences can help also in the learning processes, is what is done in other modes of delivery, like in open and distance learning. And even scientific environments where even web-based inquiry science environments are also used. There are a number of approaches that can be used to strengthen the teaching and learning and the support mechanisms that the university look at. Advancement is about collaborative partnerships and focusing on exploring and tapping into those opportunities to see what resources can be obtained to support the institutional goals and plans that are put in place. And under advancement, the focus that is important is to establish collaborative partnerships. And this is an area that I worked on in the past. I was responsible as a Pro-Vice Chancellor for strategic planning for many years, as well as also resource mobilization and advancement and other institutional issues assisting the Vice Chancellor. So it's an area where, which resonates well, is an area that I'm passionate about and which I will be able to make much help. Resource mobilization can be approached in many ways, but one of the key things I can mention at this stage really is that the alumni foundations and endowment funds are approaches that are standard approaches, and the DVC University has got an alumni office that works very well in this respect. I once visited this office when I'd come for a contact visit at UNISA, because I used to work very closely with UNISA at my university. And so these kind of approaches can strengthen if those things are not in place, but I believe that can be done. There are national centers of excellence that are already here at DVC University, 10 of them, and more can be built. And international output is important, and many other things. So in the advancement approaches, we want to broaden, it's important to broaden the resource mobilization approaches, as well as also looking at ways of strengthening fundraising and many other things. And the focus on the capital campaigns becomes important, where we look at specific projects and approaches to raise capital for projects geared for specific projects or infrastructure development issues, which are often referred to as capital campaigns projects. And this is one area that I would like to make a contribution, learning from other parts of the world, that the capital campaigns project is part of advancement. It's an approach that can really strengthen the resource mobilization ways of doing that. The this university strategic framework, the vision of 2022, is a great vision that will see the university growing to become a leading research-intensive university by 2022. There are a lot of strategies that have been already identified, but some of them may require to be strengthened for them to be implemented, especially for the university to become a world leader in a number of ways. And I emphasize one or two of them. the internationalization program or strategy itself broadens and ensures that the university is relevant not only locally but also across the borders and working with others. And for each university to become recognized among academics, it's important to take note of the approaches that would make it more successful and become a leader with respect to the international rankings that are put in place. The values of the university, as I've studied and seen, are values that can be quite useful and give the appropriate guidance into the achievement of that framework which was put in place. The academic vision, just my contribution towards that in support of transformation, as well as also the other initiatives as defined by the framework of the university, is just to ensure that the university maintains its position by ensuring that the highest standards are in place and that the best students and best professors are there to ensure that the advancement of scholarship is maintained. And other things have already been defined by the framework, I may not repeat them. There is a need then, as one looks at that area, to extend it further to make the university more and more relevant to industry and commerce. And this is where modernization and advancement come in, with the interest in particular, the focus on the science, technology, and engineering, the approaches that I am advocating for, approaches that have been found to work so well, and I talk of science, technology, engineering in that particular respect to ensure then that the policy framework and other national initiatives will be strengthened in that regard. And my background is fairly strong as a scientist in that area, so it's an area where we can make contributions, and it's guided by council and working with other colleagues in that respect. The technology innovation hubs is just one of the approaches. Again, the university could work wherever the initiatives and approaches in science and technology to work with the local industry, but this approach of hubs requires the institutions working together with industry networks that are relevant, as well as also the local entrepreneurs and other social structures to make sure that whatever solutions are discovered by the university, those can be implemented by the communities where the university looks at. And we cannot, as we look at the future, there are emerging technologies that are inevitable, that also need to be part of the approaches to the future. And the framework of the vision of 2022 of the university already provides that guideline. What is important is to make sure then that those kind of other little details are there, are taken care of. And these include some of the IT-related issues and technology that people talk about, ensuring that the infrastructure and facilities are put in place. This is why, in this respect, one talks of Internet of Things, big data, convergence, and other technological advances that people are talking about. The strategic plan or technology plan specific to the university is just an extraction of specific focus or advancing the technological thrust of the university to make sure then that the university remains a leader with respect to technology in a number of areas. I will share with you one of the observations I picked up on the world rankings, that when you look at the world ranking for this university, though it has done very well in many respects, but the area that the social sciences are actually a leader with respect to international world rankings. But when it comes to physical science and so on, the level is we are a little bit behind the social sciences, and this is why it's important to also make sure that technology plan is important. As I quickly just finish off, the management style that supports the advancement, transformation, and the future of the university requires us to focus on strategic thrusts that is defined by management, by objectives, or specific corporate objectives that are defined from strategic plan of the university. And one would need to ensure then that there is that kind of culture of the philosophy of making sure that collective leadership is in place and appropriate leadership supports that. On the marketing side, it's important as part of the advancement to market and increase the visibility of the university by working with established marketers, using the digital front, the online digital space, and also creating events that would increase visibility of the university. And I want to finish off by pointing to the world rankings as they've been published recently in the last 24 hours of what I came across, that this university has done so well when it comes to international outlook and so on, according to scores that I picked up and I put in there. And when you look at the graph of the performance over the years, you see that it's quite possible for this university to achieve its vision to be among the top 100 as we look in the future. And the financial management just guides us, again working with the responsible people in executive management to lead us to ensure then that the goals that have been defined are achievable and specific strategies are put in place to support what the institution has already defined to achieve a number of things. And lastly, I would want to mention that when it comes to strategic people management, since we are looking at focus on human resources, there is need to look at specific strategies that address the strengthening of the human capital of the university and building for the future, but also as you look at building the future, one wants to look at making sure that the capacity continues to grow and to comply with the law and focus on building the talents. So in conclusion, I believe that I can be able to make contributions with respect to transformation, with respect to advancement approaches and resource mobilization, and other specific arms and approaches of the university plans because of my background as a scientist, the things that I can be able to provide for, and also the development in particular of the international profile, the partnerships with other institutions that can be strengthened and broadened, as well as also resource mobilization and other kind of efforts.
Thank you, Professor, for a very detailed and insightful presentation. We're going to spend 15 minutes taking some questions. Any questions to Professor Kabanda? Prof?
Thank you very much, Prof. Kabanda, for the presentation. But my question is really more on the clarity side. You place a lot of emphasis on you being a scientist, and you also spoke about SET, science, engineering, and technology. Are you talking about science in its strictest sense, like core sciences, or are you talking about science in its broadest sense?
Thank you very much for that question. I'm talking of science in its broadest sense. We are looking at not just the core sciences, but a scientific approach for the entire universities to strengthen, including even social sciences, so that the university becomes more and more relevant to the challenges we face as a country and also make relevant contributions to the economy. So it's just an essential one about the context.
Thank you, Prof. Excuse my voice quality. In your first slide, you've identified, or at least touched on, some protest actions that you've been following. Among them was the labor protest. To assist you in highlighting what it was about, to a certain extent it bordered around levels of trust between management and organized labor, as well as the reality among workers thinking that management of the institution was not listening to them. So the question I would like to ask you, Prof, is how do you intend to work on avoiding such. Because we are not about strikes only, there is a core business. And along the way, we have to be seen to be focusing on that and this disputes, etc. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. I think the approach that I would propose is an approach where you want to reduce the gaps between management and workers in various groups by working very closely, ensuring that the Works Council or other groupings are put together. I observed that, for example, the academics are not unionized. They are not in specific groupings and so on. And one would want to ensure that issues that affect such groupings and so on are picked up through the appropriate representation. There's constant dialogue with management and also consultation with council. And then also even issues that affect the welfare of staff in general, it's always important to be on top of the situation instead of waiting until there's a problem. So there's need for consultations and continuous dialogue among the different groups, but whilst at the same time also checking the space outside the institution, looking at what is happening within the nation. Because some of the problems could emanate from outside the university, but because it's a common social problem. So if it happens elsewhere, we then need to make sure that in-house, we also are in constant interaction and make sure that we have to take care of that.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Professor. Just apropos your previous comment, I know it does say in the report on transforming higher education in the 21st century that academics are not unionized, but in fact they are unionized on this campus. There's an academic staff association of which I'm president. So just a correction on that.
Thank you very much. Right.
Any further questions? We still have some time.
So the only question, Scavender, the only question I have is that you've got quite a bit of experience in Zimbabwe. And clearly you have some experience in the United States. The South African higher education system, the levels of its unionization is a very, very different environment from both those cases where you've had some experience. And I wonder whether you think that is an advantage or a disadvantage. And secondly, whether your current position, whether you would be able to adapt to, if you like, an environment that is so significantly different from both those circumstances where you've got some experience.
Thank you very much, Professor, for that good question. I believe I'll be able to quickly adapt to the situation because of two reasons. One of them, the experience in Zimbabwe has not just been isolation. The institution that I worked for in other areas, I worked very closely with a lot of South African universities, one of which is UNISA, and other universities within the open distance learning environment. So it gives an opportunity for one to learn and also see the appreciation of what happens in South Africa in other ways. And then also the participation in a lot of other regional activities within higher education, with the Sarua and so on, helped one to appreciate what happens at that particular level. And by working closely with colleagues, academics, researchers within South Africa and others, it helped us to, for me in particular, also to be learning and picking up issues that are from there. The thing that we learn then from outside our own continent are also area practices that are slightly different, where we then want us to look at contextualizing that relevant, but it's a challenging approach, but I think I'll be able to quickly adapt because of the proximity that I've had within working very closely within Southern Africa, but working with other institutions in South Africa, and we can be able to learn very quickly on how best to ensure that the challenges that we face in our education are also dealt with.
Thanks, Jack. It's a follow-up, Prof. You've identified some gaps earlier when you spoke about formations. But my follow-up question is, in fact, the gap could be wider than you could imagine. However, my question will be linked around your intention to close the gap. Let me give you an example, and it's a reality. There are some among staff members who will have felt that professional and admin support staff are treated as second-best citizens of the university. As such, we will expect the incoming DVC to bridge that gap. How do you intend correcting that? The second part of my question is, the relationship between workers, organized labor, and management of the institution is governed by policies and a particular ER framework. How do you intend, in the process of bridging the gap, to harmonize that relationship? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. The first aspect of it, where the professional and admin staff may be treated as secondary kind of citizens, it's a problem that I'm very much familiar with. Because when I was a Pro-Vice Chancellor, in my previous job, I was looking after, I saw responsibility to support the Vice Chancellor on administrative issues, and in particular also dealing with non-academics and picking up issues. So issues due right from the recruitment, promotion, and other kind of things, and so on. And so it's an area that requires an approach which is holistic, ensuring that you strengthen the institution by reducing those kind of gaps and picking up issues using the appropriate structures that are already in place, that the issues that affects or that staff that are professional and administrative face are picked up early enough, are taken care of, so we've got appropriate procedures and policies in place guided by council to make sure that those issues are dealt with. There's need for confidence building and making sure that those issues are articulated to the highest possible level. And in particular, I think with the guidance of council, those issues can be dealt with. It's an area that I used to be responsible for, and I can be able to relate very well, especially with non-academic staff, to make sure that the issues are dealt with. The other point or issue you raised in terms of harmonization, with harmonization, really what you want to do there is to ensure that the relationships between management and workers is one that is very healthy, and one in which people are able to work very closely in many ways and to reduce the gaps that are there. And so regular meetings, regular consultations and approaches through Works Council or appropriate structures. I'm not quite sure what is already on the ground, but similar approaches where the different representative groups can be working very closely and converging on a number of issues. I believe then the approach that really I advocate for is one where there's constant dialogue from time to time, ensuring that approaches are put in place to ensure that those issues are dealt with early enough and are taken care of in consultation and support many other ways. The idea there is to ensure then that there is that's a unit of purpose in all the groups, including academics as well as also non-teaching staff, to make sure that the university flows together to achieve a common purpose and so on. And a lot of cross-pollination and heterogeneous approaches to be taken to build up. So I'm just looking at teamwork across different ways so that heterogeneous approaches are taken for the different groups to work together as well.
Any further questions, colleagues? If there are no questions, thank you, Professor Kabanda. We will see you at 2:45 this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
next candidate will be joining us in 5 minutes, so let's make sure that we are back.
Hold for a while. We're waiting for the check.
Oh, okay.
You have some water.
Thank you, so.
So this is the picture for what?
Dr. Kati, thank you very much for availing yourself and putting yourself forward for this process. We're looking forward to your presentations. Colleagues, just again to reintroduce Dr. Kati. As I've said earlier, he's currently employed as an Executive Director, Research Chairs and Centers for Excellence at NRF. Has almost 10 years of senior management and executive experience in research and higher education. He completed his DIC in molecular medicine in 1998, and his DPhil in molecular pathology in 2002 at the University of Oxford in the UK. Thank you, Doctor. We look forward to your presentation. You'll present for about 30 minutes, after which we'll have 15 minutes of Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I hope everybody can hear me. I'm not quite an orientator, and in a post-truth era, where emotional appeal is more important than facts, I'm going to choose the latter. I'm going to speak the truth. I'm going to stick to the facts. You might get bored because of how I speak. It is how I speak, and I can't change it. So I want you to focus on what I'm going to say and not how I say it. Because there's a lot of valid facts, there's a lot of content in what I'm going to say. The selection committee asked a fundamental, a very basic, yet profound and pertinent question of how I will approach the advancement, human resource, and transformation challenges facing South African higher education today, particularly as they will apply to Wits University. It is important to foreground and provide some context to my response. My response is based on the vision of an institutional function underpinning academic excellence, teaching excellence, research excellence, community engagement, and societal benefit. I subscribe to the 2022 vision, positioning Wits as a leading world-class research intensive university, firmly embedded among the top elite universities. However, I must hasten to add that Wits must not only be a world-class university, but it must also respond to societal needs and accordingly benefit society at large, starting with the Wits community. the student, and the people that work for this university. Charity begins at home. In this case, or rather to rephrase, the charity begins at home, to sort of unpack it. We all know that the person's first responsibility is to provide for the needs of their own family. In this case, the vet family. Vet must contribute to the advancement of its people, the advancement of the South African society, and the African continent, in addition to advancing knowledge. Chris Brink, in his book titled The Soul of a University, posits that there are two questions we should ask about our academic work. The first question is, what are universities good at? And the second is, what are universities good for? The first question is about excellence, i.e. being world class. The second question is about purpose. How do universities respond to the needs and demands of society? Can you see the graph? Yes. That illustrative graph shows the ranking of vets relative, and I must emphasize, a non-representative sample of other world universities ranked above it by the World Academic Ranking of Universities, what is known as the Shanghai ranking system in short. As you can clearly see, just a representative sample, the top 50 is dominated by US universities, including your Ivy League universities, followed by the British Russell Group universities. In the top 50, the US has about 21 universities, and there are 6 Russell Group universities. And the color, that is the colorful circles, represent BRICS. So you can clearly see that there is only one BRICS university in the top 50, and only 4 BRICS universities in the top 100. Wits is the only BRICS university in South Africa, the only Arua member university, and the only university in the African continent to be ranked by ARU. I'm going to use the word ARU for the Shanghai system, in the top 300 universities. Surely, vets should be part of this, but certainly not complacent. So the slide ahead of me, but if you look at the curve here, consistent, you know, that how that goes up, shows it's consistent with the Japanese Kaizen philosophy, or continuous improvement, and also consistent with the VET Vision 2022. I believe that we can catapult VET to the top 100 universities within our lifetime. Equally important, by conducting research that responds to the current challenges faced by civil society, locally and globally, I believe that VETs might just equal, if not surpass, some of the best world universities in terms of social benefit. So on the y-axis, that's the ranking and the size of the bubble is relative to the income of the university. So you can clearly see that if universities like Harvard, bubble is bigger, they have over 20 times the income of VETs, which is much smaller. And then on the x-axis, it's speculative because we don't quite have indicators for that. So what I'm showing is that the VETs can actually shift to be more impact in terms of social benefit. And we mustn't delude ourselves. Maybe it's possible, it's realistic that within our lifetime, which will be about 5 to 10 years, VETs will climb into the top 100 universities. By giving the budget required to move into the top 50, it might be a tall order. So also given that charity begins at home, the future that we aspire for should also be a visibly happy university. Happy in the sense that the vet student and the people that work for this university should be visibly happy. In as much as happiness comes from within, as you can see on the verses, that's mine. In as much as happiness comes from within, it is important that vets provide an environment conducive for the people to be happy. Because we all know that happy people are productive people. Having said that, it is fitting for me to take stock and briefly pay some respect to vets for what it has done well regarding advancement, HR, and transformation. Regarding advancement, vets has established good alumni relations throughout the world. And still under the alumni portfolio led by Peter Maha, vets is doing well in routinely organizing functions and events. vets has also an effective communication function. It is not by accident that the Vets Communication Services, led by Shiwana Patela, was a finalist for the 2018 NSTF Award. And it is also a finalist for this year. And I, for one, having been an NSTF finalist and also currently serving in the panel of experts for NSTF awards, I know how competitive those awards are. Having said that, I hope and believe that this year, the Vets Communication Services team will win the award this year, come Thursday. I'll be there to congratulate you when we win. The effectiveness of the Vets Communication is also evident from compelling annual reports written and compiled with so much verve by Dinesh Sofood. In the face of the austerity environment, diminishing budgets, and regulated student fees, VET has done relatively well in fundraising and staying afloat with positive margins or surplus, at least for the last 5 years. VET has also done well in establishing a rapport and maintaining enduring relationships with fundraisers or funders from different sectors, both locally and internationally. VET will also be commended for investing over 2 billion over the last decade. This includes a $500 million investment towards ICT upgrade and integration of technology throughout the institution, including in its teaching, learning, and research program. The technological innovations at the Simuloko Digital Innovation Precinct, which I visited last year, is remarkable and in tune with the fourth industrial revolution era we are living in. From HR perspective, VET has done well in recruiting top academics. The result of this, especially a steady increase in the quality of research output, including publication of research articles in journals such as Nature and Science, as well as an increase in the number of highly cited researchers, improved the international ranking of VETs, at least as measured by the Shanghai system. You will know that since when the Shanghai system was established in 2003, VETs was at the bottom of the top 500 universities for nearly 10 years. And the watermark moment was in 2014. And I've done the analysis of the Shanghai ranking system. And then that watermark coincided with highly cited researchers. For 10 years, the highest VET attained a score of 0, consistently for highly cited researchers. And when the number increased to 7.1, immediately VETs moved or sort of break the 300 barrier and move to the top. And as we speak, it is the #1 ranked university, like I've emphasized using the Shanghai system. Responding to the non-academic staff, VETS did well by insourcing approximately 1,500 workers and for also developing a workers' charter. VETS must also be commended by signing a 3-year salary deal, which will hopefully provide stability for at least that period. In terms of transformation, VETS could have done much better. However, it has done some inroads, some commendable progress, such as transforming demographics of students. She'll also be commended for investing about 45 million. First, will also be commended for investing about 45 million for the diversification of the academy, including making some appointments to that effect. VETS has also made good progress in renaming some buildings, spaces, and boardrooms as part of a diverse and inclusive culture. Now, how do we overcome the advancement challenges? With the Fees Must Fall campaign, protest and calls for a living wage, and budget cuts for research, there is evidently a dire need for compelling and sustainable fundraising to, among others, adequately support and provide full-cost bursaries to all needy students, including the massive major students from undergraduate to PhD level. There is also need to raise funding to pay living wages and performance bonuses, as well as to support career development for staff up to the highest aspired level. There is also a need to fund researchers and large-scale infrastructure. Now, the obvious question is, how and where do we raise the third stream income? The obvious choice will be your alumni and wealthy people, corporates or the private sector in general, public sector, including the CETAs, international governments and agencies, NGOs, PBOs, and university-owned enterprises. I think if you go to the VETS, giving to VETS, there's a long list of people who have donated to the VETS. So in terms of the university-owned enterprises, such as the Golden Medical Center, VETS can also, as a diversification of those, include the development of land it owns and use the money made out of that as a third stream income to support many needy students. The university-owned land could also be developed to provide subsidized housing for needy staff. Established researchers should also be encouraged to emulate the VETS Productive Health and HIV Institute led by Helen Peace to source mega funds for research, development, and innovation. Still, as part of the advancement in effective stakeholder management, I will ensure impeccable and continuous communication with all stakeholders. I will effectively market VETS as a university of choice and encourage all staff and students to be visible and proud ambassadors of the university brand. This is moving faster than I anticipate, yeah? So in terms of HR strategy, VETS need a strategy that supports a leading research-intensive university. That strategy must be flexible, proactive, and responsive. As part of that strategy, VETS must continue hiring and retaining top academics, but it must also grow its own timber by supporting early career and rising academics from within its existing staff so that they can also become top academics. VETS must increase the number of staff with PhD degrees through staff development so that there's a pool of active researchers in order to maintain a healthy staff-student ratio for optimal teaching, supervision, and research productivity. VETS must also develop and train administrative staff and low-skill staff with improved retention, career pathing, and succession planning programs so that they can also be promoted eventually to become academics upon obtaining the necessary qualification. That is consistent with the goals of Employment Equity Act. VETS must ensure equal opportunities and fair treatment in all aspects of employment, including retention, promotion, and advancement. I can't overemphasize the need for a good labor relations, because labor relations is key to the academic project. The HR function must implement employees' wellness program with emotional support. The university must also implement strategies that ensure welfare for students, also with effective emotional support. Speaking of effective emotional support for staff and students, in the last few years, we had unfortunate incidences of suicides among staff and students within the South African higher education system, including here at VETS. We all know that last year around this time in July 27, we lost one of the exceptionally talented researchers and a very good friend of mine and collaborator for many, many years to suicide. And even here at VETS last year, we read in the newspapers that 2 students committed suicide. We also read in the newspapers that as it goes over to 2019, the SRC president, she dissuaded one of the students from committing suicide. So an untimely and preventable death of a student or employee of a university is one too many and must be prevented at all costs, by all means necessary. Universities like VETS cannot train doctors, clinical specialists, and allied professionals, health professionals, and yet not provide adequate wellness program and emotional support for its own staff. In the same breath, VETS cannot only manage and train town planners, architects, quantity surveyors, project managers, enable them property laws, and not develop land to provide decent accommodation to its needy employees at subsidized or zero rate interest rate. As part of a HR strategy that supports a leading research-intensive university, VETS must inculcate a culture of high performance, productivity, and self-actualization among all employees and students. I'm coming back towards the end. I'm going to speak of transformation. It's quite loaded, as we know. We know the broad definition of transformation. Many things. It's not just about the demographics. It's also about language, culture, and you know, like there's about 8 points. You know them. I'm not going to belabor the point. But what I want to say is that transformation is essential to sustain academic excellence. And for this reason, following a consultative process throughout the university, it is important that VETS come up with a transformation charter, which will be adopted by all staff and students. But in parallel, it must also give impetus in the implementation of the VETS transformation plan. As part of the implementation process, VETS need to foster and lead ongoing focus group dialogue and discussions on all aspects of transformation across the university. From the demographics aspect Of course, Westmans needs to continue diversifying the academy, but also know that transformation is not only about access or representation, it's also about retention and success of historically disadvantaged individuals. So in order to achieve that, let's need to implement targeted recruitment, development, and retention, as well as succession planning programs for historically disadvantaged individuals. There must be inclusive participation of underrepresented demographics at a professorial and set level, senior executive team level. In order to attain, I think I'm wondering, I think the next slide, on transformation, this is moving too fast. In ensuring diverse and inclusive participation in the academic project and knowledge enterprise, VET ought to foster an inclusive university where there is diversity of thoughts and ideas. VET also needs to nurture collegiality. It needs to recognize and respect difference and celebrate diversity. That is, VET must lay the foundation for a university that is united in its diversity, consistent with our code of arms motto, Khe Ikara Khe. So having just spoken the Khoisan language of the camp people, there is an urgent need. There is an urgent need to deepen or to address the language dynamics and deepen curriculum transformation. There is also an urgent need to address institutional culture where everyone will feel welcome. We need to appreciate that advancement of the transformation agenda is the responsibility of all. However, to accelerate the demographic dimension of transformation, including diversification of the academy, the implementation of Employment Equity Act, and the advancement of designated groups, especially within the senior university structures, it must be part of the performance agreement for all line managers. I can see the chair is here. I was going to talk about portfolio coherence. I still have to get thanks. You intimidated me a bit. So, if you look at the ART portfolio at a glance, it appears as if it has many functions that seem disparate. However, a common denominator is that the HRT portfolio is about people. It's about people as students, about people as employees and colleagues, about people as alumni, donors, funders, and supporters of the higher education. It's about effective communication internally and externally. And in terms of my management, administrative, and leadership, I will always act with integrity in the best interest of the university at heart. Given that VET is an academic environment, collegiality is an important value. My style is open and consultative, but decisive, efficient, effective, and responsive. I believe in engaging colleagues, staff, and students to get sound input for good decisions. I manage with empathy and compassion. I reflect on decisions gone wrong and recalibrate. I believe in and I have an ethical and inspirational leadership style, which is predicated upon value-driven decision-making aligned to organizational values, vision, and mission. I am going to end, Chair, but I'd like to end with an adaptation of an excerpt from one of my favorite poems by one of the greatest poets of the 20th century and in 1983 Nobel laureate in literature, William Butler Yeats. I am well aware that most, if not all of you, as staff and students of this university, you do not have the heavens and breaded cloth to spread under my feet. Therefore, as a DVC, I will tread softly, for I will be treading on the dreams. Thank you.
Dr. Kadi, thank you very much for that interesting and stimulating presentation. For someone who claimed that you're not an orator, I felt very engaged with the oration in which you delivered your presentation. I thank you very much. Colleagues, let's open it up for questions, clarifications, comments.
Sorry, I have a flu. Hi, Dr. Kati. I have a question relating to the point you made, stating that there's a desperate need for compelling and sustainable funding to adequately support all needy students from undergrad to PhD. I want to know what structures will you put in place that BITS currently has not? What would you do differently? And what do you mean by adequately support? Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, like I said, I pay some kudos for what BITS has already done. But I think one of the things that I proposed that is not yet implemented is the diversification of the family income. And I pointed out that we hear about it in the newspapers and radios all the time. And that's only land, right? So, like, why don't they develop that land and deposit and students? And, well, it's tricky, and also the researchers, especially for postgraduate students, they must build scholarships in their proposals. As a chair, and then as a director of the executive director of the study chairs, we allow for that. If a 2/3 of any grant that goes to such a chair, is mandated that it goes towards supporting students. So all other researchers outside of the COE school can do likewise. Needy students, what is the word again? A full cost. Is that what you were saying? Adequately. So adequate is full cost. You cover everything. You cover tuition fees, you cover living expenses, computer. Waiting for the NRF, we now have a funding policy, a new funding policy for postgraduate students. And I know that the executive director responsible for that, Romina Maharaj, has been here to this university. That has also been presented at the DVC forum on what it means to cover all students. So that the students, because most students end up moonlighting, doing other things instead of focusing. So you cover everything. And there are values which are evidence-led. That's what I mean by that. By full cost.
I thought you wanted to follow up, no? Fine, okay. Carol and Fabi.
Dr. Kati, thank you. One of your slides, you make reference to an urgent need to address institutional culture. I think it was towards the latter end of your presentation.
Yeah.
Can you perhaps share with us how, practically or pragmatically, you would do something that would address the urgent need of fixing our institutional culture?
Yeah, I think one way I did very significant way that you come out clearly is to make everybody welcome. It's about the diversification of thoughts and ideas. It's about respect. And I think that's how it should be about. And also I spoke about the drafting of the transformation charter. Because once you draft that, you have all those elements. And people must buy into it. And by buying into it, is to pledge, making a pledge. And a very good example of a chart that I've gone through, I think it's from the UK. And in terms of transformation, I think KZN has done fairly well. And it's because of that, because everybody buys and owns that. And we know that there is minimum tolerance for any form of discrimination, and we believe in the diversity of thoughts and ideas. And then, yeah, I think that's the best way of doing it.
Dr.
Kati, I'll tell you what I'm interested in. Sorry. You've got an enormous amount of experience in the National Research Foundation. And it is an important institution. But it is a very different institution. It's, in our context, it would be small, boutique, and would probably not have the complexity of stakeholders that we have. Note that on any day, at least a normal day, we would have 45,000 people walking through our doors. 37,000 of them students, some 6,000 to 7,000 of them staff of one kind or the other, either joint or normal. We have other stakeholders like alumni. And in a lot of ways, because we're in Johannesburg, we're at the center of an enormous amount of focus and reflection and debate and engagement. This kind of position is very, very different from what it will, what is involved in the NIF, including on issues like institutional culture, or how to engage labor, or all of the kind of complexities associated. Do you think you have the experience, or what in your previous work life brings an experience that would allow you to perform in this very, very complex environment? That's what I either from the NRF or from any other experiences that you have.
Thanks, yes, no, we have very valid point. I always tell people that, you know, it's quite a program, more than 7 years of funding, the budget of vets, it's more than that of however,
sorry, just to tell you that the budget of vets group at the moment sits at 8 billion.
Yes, I know that. In 2017 was 7.3, well, I didn't see the current report. Yes, it's much bigger than that. Notwithstanding the position that I hold as executive director, research chair, and centers of excellence, 5, 6 more but speak. Remember that I'm in charge in the funding perspective of more than 250 such chairs. And some of them are sitting here. Thokozani's group. And those chairs are hosted by nearly all the 26 universities. There's a lot of complexity there, because they deal on a daily basis. I didn't see how many people that I've worked with here. I don't see that, I don't see what, but at least I see this. There's a lot of complexities. Remember, it's not only beds. I have a bedside perspective. Writing with different traditional universities, comprehensive universities, universities of technology. So it's quite complex. In addition to that, I deal with the COEs, the 50 of them. And I sit in the steering committee of all those centers of excellence. So I have a very intimate understanding of how the university operates, because it provides strategic foresight for those universities. And by the way, NRF, small as it may sound, we have all the challenges that we face in the university. We have challenges of transformation. And you might know that we have drafted a transformation framework. We have challenges with labor. We have a very strong presence, and we work with them all the time. But because of our prudent way of engaging with them, fortunately, since I've been there, we never had a strike because of their investigation. And in the past, I've worked in CSIR for 10 years. It was a very complex environment, and very much akin to the university. As a matter of fact, some of the best researchers here at Vets have put them from the CSIR. I'm talking of Andrew Forbes, A. Richard, Osimana, Bob Scholes, Osmina. I'm talking about Nozi Pomoloto, who we just made a chair, Dean Brain for that matter. So the law is very much similar. You know, it may not be a university, canonical university, but it's very much similar in terms of knowledge advancement, in terms of human capacity development, So I have that experience. I have also another question at UCT. And the challenges are very much, UCT is also a research intensive university, very much similar to the VET. So I can humbly say I have more of good experience. The environment that I'm dealing with is much more complex. Dealing, you know what I know, dealing with one university, dealing with 26 or so universities, different personalities, different issues, and I handle them well, I should say.
Doc, my question might be a bit long, but it's around the career path for professional and administration staff.
Keep it short, though.
Yes. In the presentation, you touched on the development and training of professional and administration staff, and possibly converting the interested colleagues to academics. But now currently there's a problem of recycling and poaching of staff between departments because of the career ceiling being created by the system in the professional and administration staff. In such a way that you end up, you have only two options. It's either you, in order to grow, it's either you move to another department or you wish something, to happen to your senior so that you can move up. So, practically, how are you going to ensure that there's a clear career path for professional administration staff to break this cycle? Thank you.
The retention management effective, let's talk about the implementation. And that we need to comply with that. So the career pathing and all that, there must be succession planning. And like we have it in another, for example. And before you even look outside, and it's not just, shouldn't just be a nominal piece of paper that is there for compliance with the that you report to the Department of Labor. You need to say, if there's a position in the department, of course, people must qualify first, right? But if there's a position in it, you have to look towards it first. And then give those people preference. It's only after you've failed, you've exhausted all the other avenues that you can look elsewhere. And it has to be managed very effectively. And then the most
We have space to take one or two more final questions.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Doc. Among the many challenges faced by more especially professional and admin staff is what we regard as the island or gap in terms of treatment, where many of us feel that most of the admin and support staff are second-class citizens as compared to others, whilst we support the project or the core business of the institution. The question is, and this is the first part of the question, how do you intend assisting in bridging that gap so that we all feel that we are special in our own way, inclusively on both sides? The other question is, the relationship between organized labor, workers, and the management of this institution is governed by certain frameworks as well as policies that regulate the relationship. It is at one level or the other where you have found that there are protests by workers or strikes that workers may have felt that no one is listening to them, or no one is acting around what, or positively or in the interest of the workers' well-being or at any other level. How do you intend harmonizing that arrangement? But also let me put in the last part so that I don't come back for a follow-up. Wits University post-insourcing has seen a growing number of deaths, more especially from the admin and support staff. 1,500 to 2,000 of those are not on medical aid. one of the reasons is that they were either exempted from taking medical aid because they are earning below 205 per annum, or they chose not to take medical aid. So we're talking staff wellness. How are you intending to assist workers on that front? Thank you.
It's a long and a long question. I hope I remember. But I think the key is engagement and engagement, communication. Is to make other people see the work from others' perspective. For example, you mentioned that administrative staff are not valued that much. But I can tell you, in fact, in my presentation, I emphasize that each and every individual is an important role player. I emphasize that labor is a collective. It's key to the academic project. So I think you need to emphasize that. In fact, all the top academics will not be able to publish those like the papers or even train students without assistance, starting from campus control, starting from cleaners. All those people are an important part of the value chain that help this university to be where it is. And in terms of, the wellness program is key. That's why I said it first. I said vets cannot train doctors and clinical specialists and fail to provide adequate EWP nutritional support. So from there, given that the vet has capacity of healthcare workers, there must be a way of providing medical aid at a stage for those people who cannot afford at an affordable rate. And then the last part of the question was long. You see, that's why.
Employee wellness.
Yeah, I think I've just covered that. Employee wellness. That has
harmonizing relations in relation to policies that governs the relationship.
Yeah, I think the harmonizing. Well, I think the policy needs to be looked at. You see, there needs to be reviewed if there's a need, so that there's that harmony.
Dr. Kati, thank you very much for the presentation and the questions, and looking forward to seeing you this afternoon in the committee. Colleagues, now there's the pre-arranged constituency meetings. I think you said they're on the 3rd floor. Just to remind your colleagues, there are facilitators for those constituency meeting. For academics, it's Professor Majosi. For professional and admin staff is Dr. Stanley Bofu. And for student is Ms. Fatima Daher. That's going to be from now until 1 o'clock. And we expect if there are any further input and questions that the various stakeholders would like to raise, please can I have those pointed. Thank you, colleagues.
Maybe check to maybe check with HR. Yeah, wait.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What he didn't say, they had increased the scholarship. Full. So they didn't change the budget.